now that we were on the hour, let's go ahead and kick it off. Just to review real quick, if you can't find it, if you haven't been there yet, make sure you go to biosummit.live. The password is microbes rule. This is where the central hub for everything is. So other than that, if you have anything else, if you want to continue discussion from this session, outside of the session, you're going to be doing that on Slack. So communitybio.slack.com. There is a participant Google Drive that you should all have access to. If anything comes up during this session or any other sessions related to BioSummit, Code of Conduct, please send an email to codeofconduct@biosummit.org. If something happens during a session, you can email anyone with a red background to let them know that there's a code of conduct issue, and we will take care of that. We take it very seriously to create a safe space here at BioSummit. So these are really important issues to us. Once again, thank our sponsors, Millipore Sigma, the John Henry Foundation, Opentrons. We've got two back-to-back speakers today who are going to be doing some more close-knit work with you guys on equity at Common Labs with Orlando Delang from Sound Bio in Seattle, Washington. And then we're going to talk a little bit about democratization of biofabrications with Silvio Tonello, design researcher from San Andres University in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So let's start off with Orlando. Orlando's the board president of Sound Bio Lab in Seattle, Washington. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself and hand things off to him. If you guys have any questions, let me know. My name's Maria, and I am one of the meta organizers of BioSummit, and I welcome you to diversity and inclusion. This is gonna be a lot of discussion going on here instead of a lot of us talking to you, so. All right, Orlando, you ready to go?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Maria, first of all, for introducing me. And just, I know that you put in a huge amount of work into this, you and many other organizers, and I have done very little. But I'm looking forward to a good discussion with you all. It's really exciting to be here. It's my third BioSummit, I believe. I'm more excited to hear from everyone else who's coming up later and from all of you. Yeah, I'm Orlando, as just introduced, Seattle, Washington. I'm originally from London in the UK. And I've, since the start, or just the very end of last year, president of the board at Sound Bio, which is a community bio lab in Seattle, I'm not one of the co-founders. I joined in 2017 in the year that it opened. And so this year, you know, because of the pandemic, we've had lots of time for meetings, but not so much being able to run projects in the lab. And one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time on as a board, currently 5 people and looking to expand that, is equity. You know, like I think many community biolabs, and in a moment I'll kind of try and provide some sort of definition of what I mean when I say a community biolab. Our vision is to empower communities through equitable access to the life sciences, and we've been talking about what that really means for us in practice. Like, how do we better embody and that commitment and reflect that in our actual actions as an organization and in the culture that we create. And so my hope for this session is to be really interactive and as a group kind of engage with that question, more generically thinking about community biolabs. And I will keep my input like fairly minimal, just to sort of provide some structure to discussion, so as not to limit things too much just by like the specific things that I've been thinking of, what we've been doing at Sound Bio. But I'm certainly like happy to share what we've been doing and talking about if people are interested. So yeah, I thought a couple of definitions is probably useful just to provide some sort of space for discussion, but hopefully not to be limiting or exclusive. So it's particularly like, what do I mean when I say equity, and what do I mean when I say community biolabs? So maybe start with the second one. I think that like to me, a kind of working definition of a community biolab is some sort of STEAM space. So a space that involves science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, that is open to participation, that is not limited by some sort of qualification. But that still provides like a lot of different room for what a community biolab might mean in practice, and not just, you know, legally registered nonprofit organizations that have a fixed space. I think a fixed space is generally what I would envisage, but I think there are definitely models of community biolabs that don't have one fixed space or even that they operate with. And then in terms of equity, I think there's again a lot of different ways that you could describe or define equity. And I think for me, something that's key is thinking about fair and just systems. And so, yeah, so when we talk about equity, definitely, and I'd be interested to hear in a second, like what people think of this as a definition, like that we're talking about creating more fair and just systems in STEM. So that's what I mean by STEM equity. And just to kind of open up discussion, I just want to share that even that kind of seemingly fairly narrow definition has caused a lot of discussion in our board around basically kind of two main understandings of what that could mean. So one being, I think, you know, the focus of this session of diversity and inclusion. So kind of increasing access to and participation in STEM for groups and people who are currently excluded or underrepresented. And then a kind of another idea of what making a more fair and just sort of science and technology system means is challenging the kind of monopoly over science and technology that is kind of wielded by university labs and major companies, and allowing other people who have fewer resources or who are not kind of working professionally full time to be able to make use of and get benefit from science and technology. And it's just kind of, I thought it was kind of interesting because it's a sort of, in a way, these are two understandings that are in tension with each other. One is about how do we just basically increase access to existing institutions, like get more people into universities and into jobs at big biotech companies. You know, that's for us in Seattle, there are a lot of big biotechnology companies. We have a big research university, and is our role really just increasing access, like being a place where we can improve diversity and inclusion in the kind of pipeline to these institutions, or is it actually challenging those institutions? I actually don't think they're really in tension. I think that they can really work together quite well. So I'm going to move on in a second to just kind of thinking creatively about how you build, like how do community labs create more equitable systems? But I was just wondering if there was already some comments or questions about anything I talked about so far. I'll just say, like, if you, I'll just let you, I think you can unmute yourselves, I believe that's the case. And just, I know everyone already said like where they're from, but I also think it'd be interesting, just, is there anything else you want to share? And I definitely don't think this is a conversation just for people who are already involved with something that could be called a community lab. I think it'd be really great to hear input from people who are outside of that world.
There's a comment from Radha Krishna in the chat.
Okay.
I'm wondering if they wanted to unmute themselves and maybe expand on that comment.
Oh, really? Okay, I have to unmute. Is that right?
Okay. Hi. Yeah, I go by Krishna, but so one of my comments is that there's a lot of inequity globally. So the amount of resources you can pool in like central London versus or Boston, where I am right now, versus like my hometown in India is very, very different. Like, I don't know. it's like worlds apart. So I feel like education needs to be like a very strong aspect of this. And I guess my bias is that I come from the computational world. So yeah. Oh, sorry, I did not introduce myself. By the way, my name is Krishna. I'm a PhD student at Boston University. I'm also the executive director for Nona Research Foundation, which is a software nonprofit which looks at SynBio open source software. So yeah, as I was saying, when I really think about it, I don't know. I don't think you've addressed the point where, like sheer resource inequity or like level of education or quality of education is like a real big factor. And bridging that gap for quality of education is super important. Like I know one of the largest universities in my hometown, which is a national universities, where the teaching is so bad. It's and the labs and the equipment is so bad that you can't actually do like a PCR without contamination, or you can't do anything without contamination out there. So and people don't get trained to do that in that way. So I just wanted to put that out because I feel like, I don't know if you've thought about it, but the world is very diverse and the resources and quality of resources is very different. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. I just say I think that's really great for kind of just like highlighting how many sort of inbuilt assumptions I'm coming in with that I need to remind myself of. Like, like for SoundBio, we specifically took a choice to think about local systems. And then that's obviously excluding thinking in a more global sense. And I think that's a really important, like, I already in my mind was kind of closing things down to thinking about just operating locally. Thank you. So I think I have to unmute people, but if you just like use the hand up or put in a comment, I make sure to do that. Unless there's other comments, I'll move on. And I also was just something I wanted to mention was my intention would be to try and take the notes from this session and do my best at writing things up and include some of my own thoughts as well, and make sure to share that and think like in the Slack channel for this stream might make sense. I like
I guess if you
writing out documents.
Please.
So yeah, the main discussion that I wanted to have was really just kind of crowdsourcing different ideas from all of you about what do you think whether it's kind of particular actions, governance structures, creating cultures, what are the things that community labs could or should be doing and saying and thinking about when it comes to advancing equity? Keeping that open for whether that kind of definition of equity is important to you. And these, I think it would be super interesting to hear, about from people who might have particular projects or initiatives that they've actually experienced and can share how they went. But it's also really interesting just to hear kind of ideas that have yet to be given life. And then depending on how that discussion goes, I'll throw in some different kind of things we could talk about. And I also thought just it'd be good to hear from lots of different people. So at this point, maybe I'll just kind of ask you to different people to share their ideas rather than everybody commenting, getting stuck on one idea. But if we don't have a lot of comments, we'll open up a discussion. Okay, I see Omar. I'm gonna unmute. You are unmuted, cool.
I'm unmuted. I'm gonna turn on my camera because I'm on my phone. How y'all doing? It's Omar. I'm in Salinas, California. I'm from a really new biolab named Shinampa, and something that we're one of those biolabs that doesn't have a physical space, and we're in a community that doesn't have access to a lot of access to STEAM or STEM or biotech. We have a huge focus in agriculture here, and a lot of our population are immigrants or sons and daughters of immigrants. And so something we struggle with or are pushing forward with is engaging the community, finding people outside of the the community bio movement, people that don't have that direct access, that may not even know that they're interested in it, and finding ways to engage with them on a very different level. And something we've really used as a tool is bio design, and linking it with the cultures of our constituents, of our people in the community. So really linking bio design and biotech with Latinx and Chicano culture, and talking about how that relates to our ancestors and what cultivation practices our ancestors had and what kind of crops they grew and why was it important. Our name itself is drawn from an engineering, floating gardens engineered by the Aztecs and the Mexica of Mexico. And so using that as an inspiration. But I think it's very important to look in the community, engage it, and have teasing out those voices that don't necessarily get included in the conversation, may not have the knowledge to be included in the conversation, but building up that capacity and finding avenues to really build up that capacity.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, okay.
Can we maybe have some women speaking, or non-binary folk, trans people who are maybe on the call?
I can jump in. My name is Anders. I use they, them pronouns. I'm coming from Seattle, Washington on Duwamish land. And I don't have any experience in community labs, but work in a biomedical research lab in here in Seattle. But another affiliation I have is with an organization called King County Equity Now, which is a coalition of Black-led organizations in Seattle area. And I think one point that just sort of comes to mind for me is building a relationship with space and place, and with a sort of historical context regarding settler colonialism or the effects of inequities when it comes to doing community outreach or thinking about accessibility and resource allocation. That could be something I think that would be interesting with my very, very sort of base knowledge of how community labs operate in locality, and sort of thinking about geography and history in that context.
Thank you. Am I supposed to be admitting people who are in the waiting room? Just to check. Okay. So.
No. So you are only running your session. I am
Okay.
MC if we need anything. And Lizzie is admitting people, and I'm looking to people to double check who they are before we admit them and checking them. So totally 100% not you, but thank you for checking in. But I will take a second to say, just share an anecdote of an equity problem I had this summer with a problem we tried to design at Open Insulin. We actually ran, and it was not very well, it was well thought out, but we didn't put a lot of time into it. Because of COVID, we decided in 2 weeks to roll out an internship program. And that was 2 weeks from, hey, let's have an internship program, let's design an application, let's get the applications in 5 days, and then review them all over 3 days, and that was about 90 applications, and select the cohort and run it. Don't do that, it's a crazy thing to do. But we specifically set aside time in this program for some students who are at an underprivileged school in Oakland that only has one science teacher for the entire high school. They're using substitutes for that high school, and Counterculture Labs is really helping to supplement that. And we made room in this cohort of 20 interns for 5 of those students to join us. And this is a story of no success. So we had the connections to this, we had the students picked out, we had everything going. What we did not consider in our equity issue, because we wanted to give them the opportunity to be part of an internship program to get this experience that would help them get into colleges, get them the experience of doing this. They wanted to do this. What we hadn't considered in our equity question when trying to approach these communities is that they don't have the opportunity to participate. So because not all of them had internet access, not all of them had the ability to have time to participate. 4 of the 5 students we had flagged to try to join this program were stuck watching their siblings because their parents were working. and they had zero time to participate. So what we failed to think of is we created space for them, but we didn't stop to think about the systemic issues that actually hold them back from participating. And merely creating a space for people isn't doing enough. And in 2 weeks, what we said is we can create this great program, but it turns out we didn't. We ended up serving a lot of great kids. We rolled it out globally. We even had, students from Greece and from Cameroon participating. But the majority of the students who participated, especially in the Bay Area, were middle class, upper middle class students who are really passionate about research or have some tie to diabetes. But we failed. One of our big goals was to get those students who don't have access to programs like these to participate, which gives them the leg up into college, into jobs, etc. And we completely failed. 2 weeks was not enough to consider the equity issues. And this is a problem many programs in the Bay Area continue to fail at, is they can't figure out how to get these students engaged because it's something like they can't get transportation to come to you. After school, they may have jobs or, again, childcare duties. They may just be emotionally exhausted. They may have food insecurity issues and other things that we're not thinking and we're not addressing. And if you don't address them, you still don't meet them where they are. And if you're not making the time to do that, you're dealing with, you're not dealing with the systemic issues that they are, and you're not doing enough to meet them where they need to be. So that's my failure anecdote where Maria failed big time this summer. We ran a great internship program. I could not be prouder of it, but it's going to take probably 6 to 9 months, maybe even a year, to figure out how to reach those students if that is our goal. And really, really be creative and really work with them and really ask them, what do they want? What do they need? And how can we help them? Instead of assuming we knew what they wanted, and that was on me. So I will take a giant hit because I thought I was going to do something amazing and I failed to do what I wanted to do.
Thank you very much for sharing. And I was gonna throw in, it's can be perilous, but I think pitfalls or failures can also be really valuable things to share. Like I would say definitely to either speak just about yourself or speak generically and anonymously. I don't want people kind of throwing accusations at particular labs. But I think it can be interesting. I know that I spend a lot of time thinking about the things we're doing badly and the things we should be avoiding.
I had a comment on this
Please.
note. So this is not related to a science lab, but it's related to a similar problem that Maria mentioned. I used to work for an after-school program that was centered around like music, but it was supposed to be serving similar communities to the ones that Maria mentioned who might not have access to a good after-school program. But one of the issues we ran into was, did we want the program to be a program that was going to give kids a really high quality music education, or was it going to be a program that was benefiting these students in other ways? So a lot of the students had behavioral problems, difficult relating to others, they had family issues, and if we wanted to address that kind of concern, you couldn't really be a super high quality music program in the same way, because we had to spend a lot of time focused on supporting the students, and sometimes that was at a detriment to the music that was being learned and that kind of thing. So I think the same thing could happen in a science lab. Like, are you trying to solve a problem in science really well, or are you trying to serve the students and what they need, which may not necessarily be completely related to science? So I think like that when you're creating an internship and that kind of thing, it's important to think, is my mission providing a space to these students to do science and mainly supporting them in their lives? Or are we trying to do something where we create a very high quality, professional science project? Because that might not be possible if you have to focus on other issues instead. So I think it's really important when you're building these programs to think about that. And thank you for the comments on my little painting here as well.
And I think they're not mutually exclusive, but you might have to do, and this is what you might mean, that you might have to do one before you do the other. And I think from my experience, these are all very deliberate decisions. And these can be exclusionary decisions or inclusionary decisions, but they are deliberate decisions even if you didn't think you made them deliberately. So there's a lot of thought and partnering and discussions that need to go on, and I'm sorry that intent is not magical. And there's a lot of really good material out here already. We have several generations of feminist spaces, of trans queer, radical queer spaces to draw on, so we don't have to design this work from scratch either.
Thank you, Alison and Olivia. That's, yeah, I completely agree. Anyone else? Definitely don't be shy. You don't have to have a fully formed, perfect idea. I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts.
Now I know how my students feel every time I tell them to talk. It's like nobody wants to talk. But I feel that like if I talk, I'm gonna be giving my my session.
How about this? You two are playing off of each other. I think that what we've got here is, when I looked at your talks, I felt like Orlando's was a really good lead into Silvio's. So we've got about 3 minutes for Orlando to wrap up. I would remind everybody to make sure you've put your name and checked into the Google Notes doc. Take any notes, have some discussion. I think that what you've got is a lot of critical ideas for bigger, longer thoughts. And what we want to do is kick this off. And I was really, excited to have Orlando kick this off, but use this as a way to start thinking about what is diversity, what is inclusion, who are we not including? And this isn't, to give you any answers, because if we had answers, we would have fixed this by now. This is about getting the conversation started. We are in a conversation, I think, admitting that we want to have diverse, inclusive spaces is the first thing. That's part of BioSummit. Our global nature is that we seek to be inclusive at all times. Alison is one of my guideposts for remembering diversity and inclusion, and remembering that we want no manels, all male panels. We want to make sure that we have diverse voices. That doesn't just mean gender inclusivity, that means LGBT inclusivity, that means global inclusivity. Are we hearing from regional parts of the world? Are we hearing from the parts of the world we don't hear enough of? That means age
and that's hugely important. Sorry to interrupt. That's hugely important. It's easy to default to US and Europe.
It is, and we want to hear, that's one of the reasons we have the regional meetings. So I think, just as my little plug, the regionals are a real key to BioSummit, because there are regional issues that need to be addressed, need to be discussed, that may not be true for all regions. Africa has different challenges than Europe does. That's just a truism. Asia has different challenges than North America. I think there's also, a certain thing about age diversity. I learn a lot from the teens I teach. I learn a lot. A lot of the teens I teach are here as speakers because we've given them some power to actually have some equity in science and participate. And I think that the discrimination in science goes both ways. I think we have age discrimination about people being too old to participate. I think I personally could go on an entire 2-hour talk about the discrimination of moms in science. Women who get PhDs get pushed out of science once they have children, and they find it very difficult to get back in, get jobs. They use if they do come back in, they've lost months or years of tenure, et cetera, to their male colleagues from childcare duties. And we need to figure out a way to make that part of science more inclusive.
So Maria, we need to hand,
but yeah.
I'd love to hear you talk for 2 hours, but we do need to hand back over to Orlando to close up.
Orlando, you want to wrap things up?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to wrap up. I thank you all for your comments, and I'm just looking forward to hearing more from all of you over the next few days, really, and these important discussions.
Okay, well, I think that's it. And I did talk too much, and I'm going to try to step back more, because I will talk too much if you don't stop me. So instead, I'm going to let Silvio. Silvio, you're up next. So why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what we're going to be doing today.
Okay, my name is Silvio Tinello. I'm from Buenos Aires. Well, I'm from Patagonia, Argentina, like the southern part of Argentina. But now I'm living and working, yeah, in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I'm, yeah, I don't know. I am teaching sustainable design in a university, and also in I'm part of a program in that is part of the Ministry of Culture from Buenos Aires City. And first of all, yeah, I want to thank you for, I'm really glad also for being here, and I want to thank you for all the great effort and the teamwork that obviously we can see now, because this wouldn't have happened if you weren't there. And being able to share like the perspective of how do you say, I gotta apologize for my Spanglish, please. If you don't understand something that I'm saying, just let me know. And the title of the session of my part will be the democratization of biofabrication. And every time I pronounce that, it sounds like a song, doesn't it? It's like democratization. We could do something like that. And I don't know if I said, I've got a background in industrial design. I studied in a public and a free university in Argentina. And also thanks to a scholarship, I could take a Master of Science in Sustainable Design. And I want to kind of, long story short, tell you this, because I was always kind of, I took advantage of all the plans or kind of systems that were, I got a lot of scholarships. I don't want to show medals. I'm trying to say like the system developed for me to be able to develop as a person and as a professional. And somehow it's gonna be related with what I wanna talk or I'm gonna show. And there is something I thought for this session to break the ice that somehow it happened, but I think we should do this, because I thought about an idea of sharing a mural, a screen, where we could, apart from saying from where we are, it would be great to have like a picture of the world where we are located. And if I'm allowed, if I can share the screen, we could do it. Can we do that? Yeah? Okay, let me check where is it, because I was paying attention. Give me a minute. I'm gonna share this in a few seconds. Share screen, share screen, share screen. Oh, give me a minute. I'm gonna, first of all, I'm gonna copy in the chat room a link for you to be able to access the mural. Yeah, and I'm gonna go to mural, and I will be waiting for you.
If it's helpful, Silvio, you can share screen on your mural so that people can see it as well.
I can share the screen on my mural? I didn't know I could do that. Or share the Zoom, like.
Yeah, if you hit share screen, you can show us your mural as we're interacting with it as well.
Okay. Sure. This is like a 2-minute activity. It's not gonna. I thought I was sharing the screen. Sorry. Well, this is quite easy. It's like you just pick a label, put your name and the city where you at, and we are gonna be able to locate ourselves where in the world where we are. And I didn't know that we were gonna have this document where we could fill all the information, and I also thought it was a good idea to also add the contact information, but you have already done that. So if you want, you can feel free to add that information here, or it's okay. And I was thinking also about while we were doing this, we could play music, Mushroom Kingdom music. To break the.
I like it. This is how we get to know each other.
Yeah. To get in the mood of the organisms and fungi in fungi world, right?
That's right.
I forgot to set the timer, but I guess like we are, I didn't know how many we were gonna be here, so I guess that it's gonna take like just a few seconds. Well, mine is over there in Buenos Aires. Like we are in America, nobody is in Europe or, no? Boston, Seattle, cool. Ecuador. Okay, while you are having fun doing that, I guess that you have already done this. We can go back to the meeting. I just wanted to do this. I think it's always like in the virtual world, it's like somehow difficult to break the ice, and I find it funny, or at least I guess a little less nervous. So I'm gonna share, I thought about like also sharing with you some images while I was talking. So I was able to show you some stuff. And let me check if I can share the part of the presentation. And the idea is for me to show you what's happening, or from my perspective, what's happening in the Southern Hemisphere in Argentina, and to be able, if possible, to compare or to open up the dialogue to see if some stuff are happening similar in other parts of the world. And my computer, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. So this part of the session is about democratization of biofabrication. And to go to the main topic, if we think about the definition of democratization, is the action of making something accessible to everyone. And that's what I've been working on. Because as I told you, one of the privileged ones to be able to be part of this system, and that allowed me to develop as a person and as a professional. And thanks to that, some ideas were kind of inoculated in my head in terms of, I think sometimes as I've been like working with organisms, somehow I began to think of myself as one. It's not something new. We are all kind of somehow of a manifestation of life. So as we saw in the map, the idea was to see where in the world you were, because it's obvious that we are in different latitudes and environments and ecosystems and societies, and with its systems and in most of the cases, fortunately, democracies. And combining these concepts of having access to information and education, and also thinking about biofabrication processes from my background in industrial design, right? I wanted to show this image of these little guys, these fungi, especially about this kind of fungi called mycorrhizal. I don't know if that's the pronunciation, sorry about that. But I just want to go to the point of thinking of the role that this organism plays in the ecosystem as a kind of a connector or an organism that creates bridges and connections between other forms of living or other species. And I do practice on purpose the exercise of trying to imitate this role and having conscious about that, and to see myself as not being able to not forget about like the role that I'm playing, that I chose to play like a designer, for instance, from my perspective. So if we think about like having access to information and education, thanks to all the system that I was part of, that I won this scholarship and blah, 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 I was part of a mission of my country. So I had to come back because I couldn't stay in the United States and I had to give something back to society apart from designing stuff as a designer. It's like, okay, what do I do with this? How do I bring back this to the society that they were somehow like, I don't know if it's fair to say, but like paying for me to be able to access to that privilege. So fortunately, that the intention was floating in the air, and yeah, I was invited to be part of this program. This is what I also want to tell. And this program that is part of, as I said, the Ministry of Culture in Buenos Aires, that they design a program, so they provide like kind of art programs and arts and craft and design and stuff like, they design educational programs to teenagers or kids in vulnerable neighborhoods. So if we think about the environment that I showed you before, like, you know, the trees and the fungi, well, I was the fungi in this environment. It's like, okay, this is my role. I gotta make connections. I gotta provide these nutrients, these informations to these little trees that they need to grow from the info that I was given. So, and there are a lot of pictures. I'm going to show you a few, but just to give you a picture of how it's the environment in this place, right? It's like they learn how to grow stuff, bacterial cellulose, yerba mate, teenagers, like methods, time, and take care of them as if they were kids. In fact, they named it. This one is called Anna. They develop like relationships. And another connection that I identified is like, I'm gonna show you like a little, like, I'm not gonna remain in a picture for too long. So for you to be able to see that, I understood, I was also able to be part of a community lab in New York. And I understood that science is not about like going to high-end labs. This can happen everywhere. I didn't realize about that till it happened to me. So when I had the chance of doing this, it's like, okay, we have the chance to provide the information to these kids and let's see what happens. So even though there's the environment, yeah.
It looks like your slides are frozen, sorry. Are they moving on your screen?
Sorry?
Looks like your slides aren't moving. We're still on the mycorrhizal fungi slide. Have you put another slide up?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop and share again. I don't know what happened with my computer. It's like...
It's Zoom. It's really hungry on processing.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Can you see now?
No, we still can't.
No, it's like, the mouse is not moving. Can you stop from the other side? Like I don't know how to stop the.
I think I can stop screen sharing. Or maybe not. Sorry, can one of the organizers try and stop sharing, stop participant sharing as well?
I stopped his sharing, but it's not showing.
Yeah, so did I. It looks like
I tried to.
Yeah, I think we can just continue without slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sylvia.
There we go. We seem to be no longer
there we go.
sharing. Thank you, Lizzie. So just go ahead and continue maybe without slides.
So we've let Sylvia, there we go.
Am I back? Yeah, is it working? Yeah. Well, I was showing you this environment, like working, teaching young kids this new paradigm shift that I had learned thanks to this program of organized by the government, stuff like that. And at the same time, I began teaching at a private university. So I was able to go to one of the most expensive universities here. It's like, I'm trying to draw the picture of like, I was in a different, the only difference were like the privileges, because all of the kids, they wanted to learn with the same like kind of amount of energy and enthusiasm. And what I'm trying to say about like the concept of, I'm kind of pursuing, I'm in a mission. I understood that I'm in a mission, and I wanted to share this with you in order to open the dialogue to know if there are programs in other parts of the world that are also including these underprivileged students or kids or girls that they don't have access to, they don't even know what a community lab is, or they don't even know what biofabrication is, and they are out of the conversation. So I don't know if you're listening, but I also want to open I also changed a little bit the talk, because I had some doubts about how it would be like. I like the idea of like opening up a little bit in terms of questions and talking a little bit about that. Hopefully you could see a little bit of the pictures to have a picture of how it is to work in neighborhoods here.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. This is Omar again, sorry. From Chinampa in Salinas. And yeah, something that we're also thinking about as well is like similarly, like creating those accesses. And we have a huge agricultural industry here. And it's something that we see as a key element in biofabrication is organic material. And we have a ton of it.
Yeah.
But we have a large community that doesn't have that access to, or even know what, like you said, doesn't even know what a community lab is, doesn't know what biomanufacturing is. And currently we're looking at ways on how to bring that here, how to pilot that, how to bring enthusiasm and literacy around what community bio is, what a lab is, what biomanufacturing is to the young, the youth of this community, as well as the adults of this community, to create and start their own businesses in the area, create biotech businesses in Salinas, because of its close proximity to the agriculture. And something that we've been looking at in partnership with one of our members, Corinne, is just experimenting with biodesign stuff, creating kombucha leathers, teaching basics of mycelium materials, just exposing them to these materials and igniting that like curiosity of what it is. And then slowly looking at how can we build a bioreactor and start teaching about basics about fermentation. And we're very much grassroots, so we have to do pop-ups in the community, which is beneficial in that sense that we can go anywhere in the city and put up a table and start talking to people about this, talking to youth at community events, at farmer markets, and tying it again back to their knowledge, back to their culture, and knowledge of their culture and their waste that they use and how that's beneficial to that. So having those conversations first and igniting it and igniting that curiosity, and then slowly start introducing those tools to get more hands-on. Something we're really working at right now.
Well, that's cool. And igniting curiosity, I think that at early stages, when you're a kid and you somehow normalize this kind of new technology, like the biology thinking as a replacement of like the old kind of thinking, I guess that's the way we're going to make a change, if we focus on new generations. But if they don't have access to this, enough access, I think that's where the environment or where we have like a lot of work to do. And I'm in the middle of that in the process.
Just to say quickly, we have 10 minutes left, Silvio.
Sorry?
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. Okay. I don't know if I just want to like open the dialogue. And I was thinking about like, I completely forgot about what I was going to talk somehow, because I got in the conversation. I think it's more interesting than listening to myself. But I was curious about like, I think that one of the main things of important things about these kind of events is that we can make make contrast between what we think is normal. And that happened when I was studying abroad, and I faced like different, I met people from other cultures and ethnicities, and like what I thought was normal in my country was I learned another layer of respect. I had to be like kind of careful about certain things that I didn't know. But going back to what I was talking about from my personal experience or perspective, I have learned a lot like alone on my path. But in the last years, I learned the importance of communicating the knowledge to young generations and underprivileged young generations. And I just want to say that I'm in that field, in that path of working for more people to have access to this knowledge and information. And going back to the beginning of what I was saying, similar to what happens in nature, and somehow it's talking about biofabrication processes. It's not only thinking about like learning how to grow material, but also kind of comparing ourselves as organisms with the organism that we want to learn from. Is like also understanding the role in the ecosystem or the system that is part of. We are also part of a huge system, and if we, I don't know, we have to keep working on paying attention to stuff that can be improved. Sorry, I don't know. There was like a noise. Anyways, I think I just would like to know a little bit more, if there is enough time. If not, it's okay. About like if there are other programs similar to what I was showing in terms of like from the government of being able to build bridges between these vulnerable communities. And also what happened that I forgot to tell you is that I was able to build bridges between the institutions like this private university and also the public university from Buenos Aires with these vulnerable communities, where these kids, teenagers, were teaching the students from universities once they learned the processes to grow these organisms. So it's great to give power and empower these future generations with knowledge, and you never know what's going to happen or how it's going to grow or sprout.
So quick question. So this particular program you're talking about biomanufacturing, it was started by the government? Was it an initiative that the government picked up because you started, or did the government say, oh, is there like something like this? Because
no. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, every year, well, this year they canceled everything because we know what happened, that nothing's working as usual. But the thing is that every year they invite an artist, for instance, and this artist teaches whatever he or she knows to his art or her art. And last year they invited me, and that's what that's what I did. It's like, okay, I'm gonna teach how to grow stuff. It's like they learn, for instance, graphic design, electricity, or I don't know, they work with wood and metals and stuff like that, but they also learn how to grow these organisms now. And in the future, I don't know, they're gonna invite other artists. But yes, this is part of the government, the culture, the Ministry of Culture from Buenos Aires, and it's a huge team of people. I wouldn't be. I'm really thankful for being part of that team, because this is not my. I couldn't have done this alone. And I've got to say that my students mostly were women. They were girls, and that's cool. Also in the university, I like that, and I really miss them also. I guess that happens to everybody.
So folks, we have about 4 minutes left.
Okay. Oh well, look, I'm seeing at the chat there are some friends from Argentina also working. There is Heidi and there are other Argentinians here. Hi.
Yeah.
And Laura, they are also working in biofabrication, and they doing great jobs.
Anna Laura is amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, it's getting warm. Okay. I think if there are no more questions, I'm
can we once again maybe hear from some of the people who haven't spoken? As I say, particularly the women and non-binary, other identifying folks in the room.
I think you gave us a lot to think about, Silvio. I think that, in general, biofabrication as relates to, this idea of the organism, et cetera. Biofabrication is just going to continue growing. I know it's one of the hottest areas for biotech. But what we can, think about and learn from it, we've still got a lot to, build those parallels and yeah, I think my brain is still chewing on stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's also potential to continue the discussion. I'm working in biofabrication. I know Anna Laura is. I know there's some other folks on the chat who are also working in biofabrication. So it's something that's exciting to have seen grown over the last 4 BioSummits as well.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that in a way life has always been biofabrication. We've just kind of, what we've done is we figured out how to help nature be more efficient or create the compounds we want. I think the advantages is this idea that biofabrication can be beneficial. So we can possibly use it as a way to create things faster with less toxic processes, less environmental impact. And that becomes equity and other sort of issues, because who can have access to these technologies? How do we make sure they're equitably available throughout the world? Yeah, there's a lot to think about there. But I really appreciate you for joining us today and bringing these discussion points home. I always think we have a lot to learn from fungus. There's just a lot to learn there.
Yeah, we have a lot. Yeah, we have a lot to learn from nature in general. It's always been there.
Yeah, so do you want to give us a
sorry,
final
Anders,
thought
we're
before we
actually
wrap up?
at time. So there's a question for you in the chat, Silvio, about how to start. So what's the best way for us to continue the conversation on the participant Slack, maybe? Should I start a fungus channel?
Okay.
There we go. We can have a whole fungus channel. That would be not unappreciated. If folks want to talk about fungus more, we do have a breakout session with Craig Trester, one of our fellows, who's going to be doing a workshop with fungus. Nell, Little Pink Maker, is doing Materials X.
Anna Laura is doing a insulation panel for one as well, which I can't go to. I'm so sad.
there's quite a few different things on biofabrication. So I think this is a good way to kick off your interest in it. But also think of it as an equity sort of question, is who gets access to this and what can we learn from these organisms? And this is actually going to tie into the art talk tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning in the plenary session, BioArt and Design is going to be presenting a session on the state of the organism, where the organism is planet Earth. So kind of an artistic look on the organism as a species that can talk back to us. So if you're interested in these kind of things, tomorrow morning, that's going to be in the plenary session. So let's go ahead and have a quick 15-minute break, and then we will come back, and we're going to be talking next about indigenous survivorance with Jean-Luc Pitier, Jean Leong from Kupu from Hawaii, Margarita Mora, who is with Nia Taro, and Benno Juarez from Fab Lab Limo. So we have some real interesting look on this idea of diversity and inclusion from an indigenous perspective. So if you guys want to—
And we need a group photo.
We do need a group photo. So let's go ahead. We thank you so much, Allison, for doing that. So if folks have not had their cameras comfortable, turn your camera on to so we can show who showed up to what sessions. And I will give us to the count of countdown from 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everybody say fungus.
Fungus.
All right. Rolls off the tongue slightly better than, diversity and inclusion, which doesn't let you smile as much. All right, guys, we will see you at minutes at 15 after the hour to talk about indigenous communities. All right, thanks a lot.